a first-round grade on him they love, so I'm going to trust their judgment. The one that you would nitpick, the one that you would argue, I think the one that may have the most meat on the bone is you go running back at 52 when there was still a need for big bodies on that defensive line in their front seven. That's the one that I think got nitpicked the most.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, and I don't disagree with you as to where there could be some debate and discussion there, because Mel Kiper was killing me on the set during this, as this was going on. He's going, they still can't stop the run, Lou. Still can't stop the run. Still can't stop the run. And I'm like, I know, I hear you. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I hear you. And that will be, you're right. That will be one where you sit there and you go, hey, look, they come out here and, they're giving up 4.5, 4.8, 5 yards of carry still, and it's getting ugly like that again, and teams are playing ball control because they don't have to throw it against all these good DBs because they can just run it down their throat. Then replay this interview because and replay the draft too, because I'm going to be sitting there going, I didn't say that. That's not me.
Well, it is a major problem, but I'm going to disagree with both you guys a little bit because while I am with Mel, I don't think they can stop the run, and I do think it's going to be a major problem for them this year and maybe even a fatal flaw. I think the problem then comes with your second-round pick and Derek Hall, and I'm not ripping that pick. Again, if they had a first-round grade on him, I love it. But that's where you passed on a bunch of defensive tackles, specifically, what's the kid, Benton from Wisconsin? I don't know whether he's going to end up being a great player or not, but those are the guys who went between your two number 2 picks. And if you like Charbonnet at that point might have been your best bet. The question is, could you have gone inside with your second round pick, or is Derek Hall going to be enough to make that worthwhile?
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. Like, I think, okay, so we'll see. I happen to know, I've seen Derek Hall up close and personal. I've seen Cam Young. I did the Egg Bowl this past year, so I know how good he can be and how good he was in school. We'll see what happens with a guy like Mike Morris. Do they keep him at defensive end? Does he become a hybrid inside-outside player that also gives you a 6'5", 300-pounder who can move inside? And how do these guys come along? Now, I know that these aren't – and look, Keanu Benton's an interesting name that you bring up, right? Because he's one of those guys where if you watch his Wisconsin tape just this past year, there's multiple games where you're going, I wouldn't draft this dude. I would not draft him. I'd put a highway cone out there before I draft him. And then I go down to the Senior Bowl, and I'm watching him, and I have guys who I trust implicitly as far as defensive line evaluation telling me, hey, Lewis, you know who he reminds me of at this point in his career? He reminds me of Chris Jones, Kansas City Chris Jones. But he has that kind of potential, that kind of upside. And I've watched Mike Tomlin sitting there staring at him, just watching him, and I go, well, that's interesting. Well, it's not no coincidence that they drafted him. So I get it, but I wouldn't discount how Cam Young could come along. Derek Hall he is a hard-playing SOB, man. This guy gets after it. He gets after it, and he is going to be fun to watch. And Mike Morris, that's another one of those guys. It's just like you see the power, you see the natural strength, and he has got a heck of he's just got so much going for him. I hope he becomes that dude who can be an inside-outside player that gives them the kind of beat that can slow down some of the bleeding that they've had as far as run defense is concerned.
So Lewis,
there's development potential there.
I love listening to you talk about the Seahawks, and you were right on last year with their draft class, and I think you're probably going to be right on this year. I feel like they've nailed it again. But let's talk through how the heck they're going to stop the run. I mean, unfortunately, Mike Morris might be great, and Cam Young might be great, but they're rookies, and that greatness is probably a little ways off. That's generally the case in the NFL. Is this team serious about contending in 2023? And if so, how are they going to stop the run well enough to do that? Yeah,
I mean, you're right. I mean, obviously, a lot of the young guys. Okay, do I think they're serious about contending? Yes. How are they going to do that? Okay, so if you can't ever get the third down and unleash what I consider to be some real good potential as far as being able to rush the passer, how are you going to ever turn that loose if you can't ever get into second and long, third and long situations because you're always playing 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3? I guess we're going to find out.
I mean, are Draymond Jones and Jaron Reed that big of an upgrade from what you had a year ago? Because, I mean, we're talking all these draft picks. Let's remember, they went out and got, on paper, the second best defensive lineman in this free agent class in Draymond Jones. They bring back Jaron Reed, an absolute alpha that they know inside and out. I mean, let's remember those two guys added with this draft class because they're difference makers, are they not?
Absolutely. Draymond Jones is a stud. He's a stud. I was focusing on the draft class, but yeah, Draymond Jones is a stud. Jaron Reed is someone, I mean, they know him very well. Of the two, if you say, well, just pick between one of those two who you think is going to have a real tangible impact, I'm taking Draymond Jones all day. Love the way the man plays. So, those guys are not throwaways by any means, and you're dead on, Brock. So, yeah, they will more than be able to hold their own. Look, I think in the NFL now, look, teams are interested in producing explosives on offense through the air, throw to get the lead, run the ball to protect it. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily Pete's philosophy, but I know that, when teams are building football teams, they need explosive playmakers. Obviously, they need to protect their quarterback. You see they've got the running backs here. I mean, look, so I think they're very well-rounded and very well set up on offense. Defensively, teams emphasize reducing explosives, plus 20, plus 15-yard plays. Yeah, they will figure out, look, schematically somehow, some way, as long as we have competent players up front, we'll be able to get to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7 at some point, because then we can turn loose the guys who we know we have to make sure we have enough of, which are pass rushers and people who can cover in the back end.